Welcome back and thank you for staying with us on the program. In a significant development in Nigeria's electoral landscape, the Senate has officially confirmed Professor Joash Ojo Amopitan, SAN, of the North Central as a new chairman of Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. The confirmation comes after a rigorous screening process, setting the stage for a new chapter in the country's democratic journey. Tonight, we question, what does this appointment mean for the future of elections in Nigeria? Tonight, let's speak with lawyer, political affairs analyst, Andre Mwanta. Good evening, Mr. Mwanta. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Yeah, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'll greet our viewers, especially at home. Good evening,
Thank you very much. Thank you. So it looks like Professor Amopitan has, began his tenure on a promising note. He has said that under his leadership, elections will be credible, so losers will congratulate winners, but also looking for the support of several agencies. From your end, major stakeholders would say INEC has done its best, but given some of these widespread concerns about electoral malpractice, what key reforms should he prioritize to strengthen electoral integrity in Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you. I want to start on those notes. After the first INEC chairman, Honorable Justice Ephraim Akpata, 20, or rather I would say 2 decades after, we are now having somebody with a legal background to head INEC. For me, I think that is not just historic, but I think it's something we should really interrogate. Because before now, we've had issues with operational efficiency. Technology was brought in to see how it will boost voters' confidence and the confidence of Nigerians in the electoral process. Because the idea behind having a lawyer head an electoral body like INEC is to bring in somebody that really understands the rubrics behind specific provisions of the Electoral Act. And, between the first Electoral Act, that came in 1999 that ushered in democracy and the present one, we've had a couple of innovations. And Professor Amopitan is somebody that has been able to, over the years, show that he's not just a professional, but one that has the capacity to discharge certain administrative assignments. This is somebody that was pro-chancellor of a university, and before his confirmation by the Nigerian Senate, he was the deputy vice-chancellor administration of the University of Jos. So for me, I think the expectations are quite high, and I know he has not just the capacity and the competence, he has also the character to discharge the various tasks that he will be faced with first, to reposition the commission, and to see that some of those issues Nigerians have raised around the need to maybe amend the Electoral Act, to ensure that there's operational efficiency on the part of INEC, and to rejig, the technological architecture of INEC, so that we don't have problems with beavers, because the expectations are quite high. So he comes into this task with the promise of facing those challenges that, the immediate past chairman was encumbered by. So I think what we should do is to support him by not, just operating as armchair critics, but ideas that will increase voter participation, because we've always had this problem of voter apathy. So how do we cure it? There's a whole lot of enlightenment campaigns that under is what we expect. We also expect that some of the off-season elections, Nigerians should be convinced with these off-season elections that 2027 election, which is just barely 2 years from now, will be different from the previous ones. So
expectations are high,
Mr.
Mwanta. Yeah, expectations are high. And Nigerians have been clamoring for these reforms for over a decade. And that was why I asked, what key reforms do you think it should prioritize to strengthen our electoral integrity? Are these reforms realistically achievable within its tenure when you consider Nigeria's political landscape?
I think first, when we talk of the BVAS technology, we've always had problems where there's this bypass. In some places you have a BVAS machine operate, in other places, and I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. He has a clear agenda, and I think that is what new headsmen do for starters. They come up with their own program. So I expect him to also listen to Nigerians. And if you ask me, I think the starting point is to ask, why do we always have problem with the BVAS machine? Is it that we are not ready for that kind of technology? Then if we are not ready, we should look for a better option that the Electoral Act allows for. Remember, in the twilight of the Buhari administration, there was an amendment to the Electoral Act. That is to say, we had a general election in 2023. Then we now had an Electoral Act that preceded it of 2022. So it will not be out of place if there's an amendment to the Electoral Act. And for us to have that amendment, we must now agree, should we continue with this BVAS technology or should we think of something different? So that it will now help to boost voters' confidence in the electoral process. So I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, as I said, but I think there's need to change the status quo. And I think that is what informed his appointment, because when you look at his track record, he's a technocrat. This is an apolitical person. He has never been a member of any political party. He's one of the finest we have in our profession, the legal profession, not just a professor of law that has distinguished himself in areas of taxation law, company law, just name it, evidence. He has written very widely. This is one man that he was pro-chancellor of a Christian university, Joseph Ayo Babalola, a university established by the Christ Apostolic Church. So in terms of background, I don't think he's somebody that you can fault in terms of his integrity, his capacity, and competence to do the work. But what we expect is that he should listen to Nigerians, because if INEC must be independent, the opinions of Nigerians must count. And I think there's need to not just rejig INEC, but to amend the Electoral Act. People have raised issues of appointing politicians as electoral officers, as state resident electoral commissioners. I think that should stop under his watch.
And perhaps we should also talk about why rebuilding this confidence is crucial at this time as we head into some of these off-cycle elections and the 2027 elections, most importantly, because many Nigerians have lost faith in the electoral process, and that was why some Nigerians were clamoring for a change. But you're a lawyer, you're a political affairs analyst. What steps can this new leadership take to rebuild public trust? And also, Mr. Mwanta, is public perception more influenced by leadership or systemic structures within INEC?
I think before now, we never thought of creating the balance. And I think I should start with this idea of when we look at the position of INEC, if we talk of zoning when it comes to the office of president, who becomes the head of a political party, and I think for the very first time, we're having somebody from the Middle Belt head INEC. Remember, the first INEC chairman, Justice Ephraim Akpata from my state, Edo State, under Obasanjo, well, of course, before Obasanjo, he was the chairman that organized the election that brought in Obasanjo between 98 and 99. Then another person from Edo State was appointed immediately after him, Dr. Abel Gobadia. I think that was not right. That was a mismatch, bringing two people from the same states. And remember, at the time, Obasanjo's wife, his late wife, Stella Obasanjo, was from Edo State. So people would have raised issues with that. Then after him, we had Iwu, who was appointed by the same Obasanjo from the South. So for the first time, we are having the Southern president appoint somebody from Kogi State, which is North Central, as INEC chairman. So having this kind of balance, I think is necessary, because throughout the time Buhari was president, we had a Northerner there. And of course, the Northerner just left the office, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. So having somebody like Professor Amopitan, who is not first a politician, and from an area that has never occupied that office before, I think it was a very well thought out decision. And again, it's a no-brainer having a lawyer, as I said, because he's a man that, as a member of the prestigious inner bar, he will ensure that the law is not just observed in breach, but observed both in the letter and the spirit. So I think we don't want to start preempting what he will do. And I know he will live up to expectation, because his previous assignment as pro-chancellor of the Joseph Ayo Babalola University, and until recently as deputy vice chancellor, administration of the University of Jos, from what we are hearing, I think he's going to exceed expectation as INEC chairman.
And this is my own personal observation. I think we've seen increased youth engagement and digital advocacy. And I would like for you to speak on, how this new leadership should approach voter education and participation? What should be the top priorities for the new INEC leadership in terms of voter education? And also, has INEC been effective in previous voter education efforts?
Yeah, thank you. I feel if we agree that democracy is about the people, I think I present this idea to the new INEC chairman. There's need to have zonal town hall meetings to know what Nigerians think. And for such zonal town hall meetings, we should have categories of persons. We should have Market Women Association, youth bodies, civil society, even the academia where he comes from, ASU, so that invitations should be sent out to Nigerians for these zonal, town hall meetings to know what the challenges before now were. And when you have these zonal meetings, by the time he's through having these zonal meetings, it will now be time for him to meet with his management and come up with certain amendments, proposed amendments to the Electoral Act, because INEC must take the driver's seat in setting an agenda for itself, particularly under its present leadership. And even more than that, the arguments for and against the use of the BVAS technology, he should watch closely so that, regulations can also be made, because the law allows the INEC chairman to make certain regulations to see how we can now have, first, deeper internet penetration. Then if that is not possible, I think an alternative to the BVAS technology should now come on board, so that before the middle of next year, some of all these reforms, both through legislative interventions and others, should be done, because party will start having their primaries anytime from now. I mean, from the time INEC releases its timetable, which will be sometime February next year, and even members of the National Assembly, they are even making a proposal that the 2027 election should start November 2026. So I think these are the areas I expect this INEC chairman to quickly consider. And I think importantly, he must have that zonal, we have 6 geopolitical zones, the zonal town hall meetings, to know what Nigerians think. Because you cannot do anything without, the people you are out to serve. And Nigerians are the people the INEC chairman is out to serve.
And talking about
independent electoral body.
And talking about what Nigerians think, interestingly, in less than 24 hours since his confirmation, there's been some reaction to some of his decisions. Some civil rights group has condemned INEC for demanding over 1.5 billion naira as the cost of providing a copy of the National Register of Voters and the list of polling units across the country. I'm wondering, how do you interpret this decision?
Thank you. I don't think at this age and time, INEC should not have an electronic voters register, because I think it was the hard copy they talked about, but I think that particular figure that was bandied in the media, for me, it's scandalous. If really INEC make that request, I think it's scandalous. And in our present age and time, we expect INEC to provide maybe an electronic copy of the INEC register, which of course you can get either via email or some other means. So I think at the moment, if people make such requests, it would be for INEC to provide that electronic copy free of charge, as a matter of fact. So I expect the new INEC chairman, to allow this, pattern of giving soft copies or e-copies of the election register, which I think INEC has. So that's why I'm happy that we have a new person that has a legal background, and it makes the process easy. Just a thing that's important as electoral register, maybe for a governorship election, should not cost that much. The e-copy should be given for free. For free. It is now for the person getting the e-copy to now make hard copies, print hard copies of the e-copy he gets. So I think for operational efficiency, Professor Amopitana has a very huge task before him in streamlining some of all these processes.
And even if it's not free, at least at minimal cost to ensure accountability. But if you could offer Prof one piece of advice as he steps into this critical role, what would it be?
Can you take that question again, please?
If you could offer Professor Amopitan one piece of advice as he steps into this critical role, what would it be?
So first, ensure that some of these hitherto difficult procedures that create this sense of red tapeism or official bottlenecks. And I ask myself the same question, a rhetorical question. At times, you'll need a certified true copy from INEC, and it takes like forever. So I think he should break some of these bottlenecks. If you look at the Electoral Act, you find that you just pay something very minimal to get some of all these documents, but they make you stay forever. And I think corruption is also an issue. You should deal with the problem of internal corruption in INEC.
And finally, before I let you go, Mr. Nwanta, what are the consequences if INEC fails to deliver credible elections under his leadership?
We live in a world where things have been happening. And I think we should take a cue from what happened in Madagascar. Just recently in Malawi, an incumbent lost an election. I mean, he scored 30% of the votes as opposed to, the opposition who had 70%. And in that election, the people of that country came all out with what happened recently in Nepal. So I think INEC should do one thing. Allow a process that Nigerians will be the ones to make a decision, not the courts or INEC. Because if democracy is about the people, the present INEC chairman should know that his duty as INEC chairman is a sacred one. That's why the drafters of our constitution use the word independent. So the independence of INEC is a function of who heads INEC, of allowing himself not, because the law even protects him, insulates him from political interference. And we thank Mr. President for appointing a person like Professor Amopita, who is apolitical, and a man that has a fear of God. So in saying this, the expectations are high, and I pray that the new INEC chairman will provide the kind of leadership that will make INEC to live above boards, like Caesar's wife.
Right then. Thank you for those insights. Only time will tell if this new leadership will mark a turning point for Nigeria's democratic process. Thank you so much for speaking with us tonight. Andre Nwanta is a lawyer, political affairs analyst. Thank you so much for your time. Please have a great night.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for watching, everyone. That's our package tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again on Monday. Have a great weekend.